Now, my discussion and my instruction to you right now about sleep are going to be kind of rudimentary. Now, I don't think I'll probably ever do a solo episode about sleep just because, definitely it is super, super important for sports performance. It is a science, and so it would be fitting to be on the science of sports performance, but it's just not something that I am an expert in, nor do I think I'm really ever going to become an expert in it, because it really is more involved in the field of neurology and the brain. And so if you are looking for a much more in-depth tutorial about sleep tools and how to get better sleep, a great resource that I'm sure many of you listeners are familiar with, if not all, is going to be the Huberman Lab podcast. Andrew Huberman is a neuroscientist, and so he knows a lot about the brain and has some great podcasts that I have listened to and recommend to anybody about sleep. He also has, if you really, really want to get into it, a multi-episode mini-series with Dr. Matt Walker, who is a scientist who has devoted his entire career to sleep. So if you really want to get into the weeds about sleep, then I would highly recommend those resources. But I'm just going to highlight some of the basic principles that you can employ to get the best sleep and the best rest that you can. Now, the first one I think is just time, the duration, right? Many athletes don't take this seriously. I know a lot of athletes who, and I've been this way at certain points in my life, where you're trying to eat the best that you can and trying to train the best that you can, but then you get 6 or 7 hours of sleep every night, sometimes less. And I know that there's lots and lots of different things that can affect it. Family stress, you have life events going on, social events, and all these different things, school, early morning classes, and work. But really, you really need to avoid the temptation to just get pretty bad sleep and then just take a bunch of caffeine to offset your feelings of fatigue throughout the day, because this sleep is super, super important. In fact, sleep, nutrition, and exercise are going to be the 3 main pillars of health. So I want you to take your sleep just as seriously as you would take your training, just as seriously as you would take your nutrition. The most basic principle, as I just mentioned, is the duration. If you can get 8 hours of sleep, that is going to be a huge benefit for you. Now, some people don't like that idea. I've heard, videos of, people saying if you want to be rich and successful, you can't sleep 8 hours a day. That's too much time. Sleep faster. Just sleep, a couple hours each night and then just keep working all the rest of the day. If that's really how they want to live their life, I think that's fine. But if your goal is to be healthy, and definitely if your goal is to be the best performing athlete you can be, you need to take those 8 hours of sleep. Now, some tools to get high quality 8 hours of sleep, because really 6 hours of good sleep is better than 8 hours of bad sleep. To get really, really good sleep, the first thing you should think about is your body temperature. Now, your body temperature changes for you to experience the onset of sleep. Your body temperature cools down. And so there's different things that you can do, first of all, within your own body to try and limit your own body temperature and keep it from rising, is to avoid things like exercise and large meals right before bed, because those could, obviously just increase your body temperature and make it so that you kind of struggle to experience that onset of sleep. Something that you can also do is to take a hot bath or a hot shower, or as I've already mentioned, I love sauna and hot tub for recovery. If you do something like that, it's actually going to kind of signal to your body that it needs to, put in place those practices to cool down. That could be sweating, and I understand that probably a lot of you don't want to start sweating right before you go to bed, but also just the vasodilation that I've already mentioned is a thermoregulation technique. So your body's going to start cooling itself down when you are in a hot environment. And so doing something like that, in the hours leading up to bed could definitely help you with that sleep onset. But then another thing, of course, that you can do is just sleep in a cold room. So have the AC on, have the fan blowing on you so that the room is cool. And then that is obviously going to help your body temperature lower as well. In terms of light, that is something that it's very easy to manipulate in your sleep environment, the amount of light. So getting just like a blackout curtain for your window, turning off, any things like alarm clocks or things that have these bright lights in your room that might be bothering you. But then another one, and again, I'm guilty of it personally, but so many people need to do better at this, is the phone. the phone really is sending enough light to your eyeballs to think that it's daytime, and it's a bright source of light that if you want to have better sleep, you should be avoiding, so that you can sleep as best as you can, get that high quality sleep, fall asleep quickly, stay deeply asleep, enter into REM sleep. Another thing that you can do to really, really get good sleep is to breathe through your nose. Nasal breathing at sleep is really, really beneficial, because what it actually does, well, first of all, is it stimulates your vagus nerve, which is going to help you calm down and relax. The other thing is, though, is that inside of your nose are these structures called turbinates. And turbinates are just these really vascular structures within your nasal cavity that are going to help warm and humidify the air that you breathe. And so it's going to help you just be more relaxed and breathe easier and better throughout the night. And so with those two reasons combined, nasal breathing is really, really going to help you get some good sleep. Now, it's very common, you see all over the internet nowadays, nose strips, those things that you use to open up your nose so that you can nose breathe easier. They definitely can be very, very, very good. A lot of times I see people wearing these nose strips like in the gym and on a run, and in those cases, your goal is not to relax. Your goal is not to stimulate your vagus nerve and be in a calm, relaxed mood. The goal in that case is actually to exercise, especially if you're at the gym. You kind of want to be riling yourself up to lift more weight and increase your muscular power. And so I always think it's kind of goofy. I don't think there's anything wrong with mouth breathing during exercise and at the gym. However, at nighttime, they can be very, very good. I actually used to wear nose strips all the time, every single night, because I heard about them, I wanted to try them, and I loved the way that they helped me breathe through my nose better. But eventually, I found out that I had a pretty badly deviated septum, and that was the reason I couldn't breathe well through my nose. Now, obviously, the surgery for that is more expensive probably than just buying nose strips every now and again, but if I had to just speak from my own personal experience, I would recommend getting the septoplasty surgery so that you can breathe better through your nose. Since that surgery and my recovery from that surgery, I have not had to use nose strips at all. And I can breathe great through my nose, and I sleep really, really, really well now. Another thing about sleep that I would tell you guys about is that there are some people who, just really, really struggle to go to bed early. Maybe they have to wake up at a certain hour in the day. They can't just sleep in late into the morning. But then, when it comes time that they'd like to go to bed to get that 8 hours of sleep, they just don't feel like they're sleepy. I don't fall asleep for, an hour or two after when I ought to be going to bed. I'm just not sleepy. I can't fall asleep. And so because I have to wake up at this certain time, I can't get my 8 hours of sleep. The best tool to do in that case is to wake up earlier and get less sleep. Now, that sounds crazy. Hopefully you don't have to do this for more than a day or 2 or 3. But say that you have to wake up at 7 o'clock, and so you wish that you could be going to bed at 11, but you don't fall asleep. You don't feel sleepy until midnight or 12:30. Hopefully it's not something like 1 a.m., but it could even be that late. But when you try to go to bed at 11, you just can't fall asleep, and you have to wake up at 7 o'clock anyway. What you should do is fall asleep at midnight or 1 a.m., whenever it is that you do feel sleepy, and set an alarm. Wake yourself up at 5:30 a.m. And then, again, like I said, throughout that day, try not to just go overboard on the caffeine, but then at the end of the day, what's going to happen is you're going to be pooped. You're going to be super, super tired, and you're going to go to bed a little bit earlier. Now, try and keep that up for a couple days so that you are falling asleep at that time that you'd like to go to bed consistently. And then from there, you'll be able to sleep in until the time that you have to wake up anyway, which is 7. Eventually, after a few nights of that, hopefully you are falling asleep at 11 and waking up at 7. Getting those good habits involved. And really a consistent sleep schedule night to night is really going to be one of the best things you can do.